Hello, dear friends. It's Carly Wharton, and welcome to my front porch. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we are sharing this space together. And welcome to this video, day one of my personalized approach to a daily content challenge. And just overall, my dogs are a very real part of my authenticity. School bus. They're on patrol. Somebody just showed up over yonder at the neighbor's house. Yeah, this daily content challenge, I've seen a lot of people doing like a daily live or some type of challenge for themselves. It's rarely that we lack inspiration. Sometimes it's more the discipline piece of taking that inspiration and doing something with it. So as I talk about letting inspiration lead the way, that is where I'm coming from. That I think as a person, like as an individual, like I said, I've never been short on inspiration. I always have ideas. I always have like a vision of what I want to do. That's part that you can get clear on, but then actually getting it to manifest in the real world, and how do you make that leap from a vision in your mind to something that you're living in real life? That's a fun leap to make. That's like the funnest thing that I think there is for humans. In my personal experience, I've had experiences where I made a lot of money and I did not have fulfillment within the work that I was doing that was earning me a lot of money. And I'm very thankful that it clicked relatively quickly. I worked at that company for 5.5 years and was very fortunate to be able to stockpile the money that I made and let that serve me in other ways now that I'm living this path. But it helped me to realize that when I'm seeking security, when I'm seeking fulfillment, money is not the answer that I thought it was prior to having that experience where I made a lot of money and I got to feel what it was like to just like sit there and watch your bank account just stack up, your 401k, like all of it is just stacking up so fast. And it was a really cool experience for a while, like there's a freedom in that of course, like feels good. It feels good to have fewer restrictions. And as I leaned into that and really celebrated that as what I'd been seeking, it took almost no time to be very empty. Like, okay, yeah, I have this, but I still don't like myself very much. I still don't like my life a whole lot. I still am repeating the same patterns over and over again in my personal relationships and not liking the outcomes of those situations and like not really doing anything about it, just kind of cycling in that pattern on repeat. And I would say when I very first started my journey of letting my inspiration lead the way was probably a little over 5 years ago. And the first inspiration that I heard and felt and ran with was, I am fucking sick of this shit. I'm so sick of this. I am depressed. I'm not liking myself, not liking the way that my life is configured and the ways that I'm spending my time. And there's just no point to any of it. And the stuff that I do care about isn't working the way that I want it to. And I was just sick of it. I was sick of being depressed because at that point, I think that would make me like 28, that point of being so sick of my depression comes on the heels of, my ups and downs started when I was early teens. like puberty-ish. I would say like took something that was already going on and really brought it to the surface. I've also always been deeply sensitive, like very tuned into energy. And unlike the physical realm, energy changes all the time. Like you can go from one room into another room and there's totally different energy there. And so my energy was a lot yanked all over the place, and I didn't know how any of it worked. So I was just going about my business, trying to do what you do and like live a life and work a job and save some money and build a retirement account and buy a house. And like, aren't these the things that we're supposed to be doing? And why do I still feel so hollow and empty? Like, I thought once I had this security, I was supposed to feel secure. And I didn't. If anything, it felt even worse because now I had this money and this outside something that I felt insecure about losing. Like now I needed to guard it and protect it. And I was worried, like you naturally get into, people scamming you out of your money and all of that. Like it's it was so the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. And when my inspiration started talking to me, the first thing it said was, we are sick of this shit. We're not going to live like this anymore. Like I don't want to feel bad after 15 years of basically just constant chronic depression. I'm going to live a life that's happy or not at all. And I'll let you read between the lines as far as the the subtext of the ultimatum I was making with myself. Like my inspiration was ready to be happy. I was tired of suffering. I was sick of it, literally sick of it. Like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done putting up with it. And just like you break up with a toxic partner, I broke up with my toxic self. Like, you're going to do self care, you're going to do it every single day. I treated myself as a recovering addict. The addiction I had was not taking care of myself, was putting myself last. I was addicted to people pleasing. I was addicted to going with the flow of what everybody else in society was doing and trying to fit into that pattern. I was addicted to a lot of things. And in that moment of choosing daily self care instead, that was my tool for grounding into the other side of breaking up with those addictions. And so that's where my inspiration started. And most recently, it led me to here, to this porch. And like the only words in my brain, the only words that'll come are creating for the sake of creating, because sitting here in this moment, I'm outside looking out on my yard and my dogs and hearing the birds and the bees and the bugs and seeing the trees that are just starting to change. It's like 55 degrees because it's like a chilly fall morning. And there's nowhere I would rather be. There's just like sitting inside this moment is like it's a pleasure, it's a treat. Like for so long, I'm a little all over the place, which is just my style. Welcome to the party. Um, for so long, I treated myself with food. Like I thought of like yummy food as the treat. And I've recently gone through some metamorphosis and I no longer see it that way. So I've been asking myself, so if, going to get ice cream or a burger or whatever, like if that's not going to be the treat, then what is? And creating for the sake of creating, sitting in this moment for the peacefulness of being in this moment is what I'm in it for. And that's where my inspiration has led me today. Um, I really love the idea of building discipline. I struggle. I I'm a little all over the place. Like discipline is not necessarily my forte, although I do have the ability to focus myself on purpose. And so I've been intentionally building discipline. And this has all come through a process of inspiration. And it goes back to the beginning of me starting daily self care, where the trick that worked for me, because I'd done self care, I'd tried to commit to daily self care multiple times, and I had done it for maybe even a couple months. And then I felt so good that I quit doing it. I quit taking the medicine because I was recovered. No, it doesn't work like that, right? Like an alcoholic who stops drinking for 2 months, like they go back to it, they're probably still an alcoholic. Like you're still going to fall right back into that same pattern. So every time I quit daily self care, I went right back into depression. It didn't take long for the good attitude, good vibes that I'd built up to like wear off. And now you're back into your practiced state of depression. And I'm realizing now that that's all it was my practice state. So at this point, daily self care is a lot about the daily practice of practicing the state that I do want to feel. And it started for me with a gratitude list. So, like every morning, every day, uh, taking the time to count my blessings, so to speak, to look around my life and to give thanks for what I already have, the things that at one point I wished for, and that now I have them. And that is the transformation that we are making ever, like we make that transformation all the time. And so often we get sidetracked, like waiting for the next transformation, waiting for the next thing that we're going to manifest, instead of like looking at how many things have you manifested, how powerful of a manifester are you already, and to celebrate that and to really feel the abundance of what you already have as a means for magnetizing yourself and attracting abundance from the world around you. So, a daily practice of being grateful and shining a light on things that I'm grateful for bring more and more things like that into my world. So, it was very simple. It was like spend 5 minutes making a list of the things that I'm grateful for, and however many things I can come up with in 5 minutes, that's all I need to do. And when the 5 minutes is over, move on with your life. And tomorrow, do it again. And tomorrow, do it again. And tomorrow, do it again. Do it every day for the rest of your life. Like make it a lifestyle. So that's where I'm at, is like 1900 days of self care. Oh, a hummingbird. I see them as signs of abundance. So it's always a treat for me to get to see a hummingbird. Um, so that's very cool that I was like just talking about that. So when I first started self-care, I I treated myself like a recovering addict. Like I was going to count my days of sobriety. I knew all along what the answer was, daily self-care. And like someone who wasn't prioritizing their health, I just wasn't doing it. I knew that it was good for me and I just wasn't doing it. And so when I started that very last time, 5.5 years ago, almost 5.5 years ago, um, I started counting days. It was day one. This is day one of I'm gonna do this every day. And then tomorrow it's day two. And like that in and of itself was very cool, because you get to day 5 and 7, like before you know it, like those days just go by so fast, whether we really realize it or not. And when we're giving ourselves credit for like positive reinforcement of our good behaviors, like every single day, and like a bank account, like we're investing in ourselves and watching that investment accumulate every single day, before you know it, it's day 45, and then it's day 100, and then it's a year. And it just like it adds up, and that time goes by whether we invest in ourselves or not. So for me, it started like that. It was like 10, 15 minutes a morning. And that was my bar. That was my bare minimum to count that, okay, I did self-care today. If I spent 10 minutes making a gratitude list or like going for a walk, or I had a very low bar. There were a lot of different things that I could do inside of that 10 minutes that would count. Um, because I wanted to make it easy for myself. I wanted to set myself up for success. I wanted to be able to count the day. That was my goal. It was me being on my own team, on my own side, and I made it easy for myself. And that was how the momentum started. And then in times of not wanting to show up for myself, wanting to take the day off and just fuck it and like don't do it, I would look and I'm like, but I've been doing it for 55 days. Like, are you really not going to do it today? Like, it's 10 minutes. Like, can you really not do 10 minutes? Like, you really can't. You don't have to. Like, that's the stance I take with myself often. Like, let yourself off the hook because you can't force it. But are you really going to throw away 55 days? Like, that's the conversation you get to start having with yourself. And it isn't judgmental, it's supportive. It's like you rooting for your own momentum. And I did this, 5 years ago, and I stopped counting days of self-care somewhere in the late 600s. It was just natural. It just was every morning I wake up and I do my self-care time. Like that's the first thing I do every day, no matter what. Doesn't matter what's on the agenda for that day. At least the first hour, 2 hours is just between me and me. that's mine. So I don't need to really count the days, but it's still cool because, like I said, it's like approaching 2000. So that's kind of nice. Um, and that gave me this inspiration of like, even a video of what I've learned in 2000 days of self-care. I think that'll be cool to get to that point and be able to tell that story because we've all, if you're listening to this video, you've lived 2000 days, right? And the only thing that makes that 2000 days different from this 2000 days is consistent effort and setting the bar low enough that no matter what, you can like hurl yourself across it. So that's my key takeaway for letting inspiration lead the way is making things easy on ourselves, like when we really let our inspiration start talking to us, a lot of self-doubt gets brought out into the light to be healed. And that is the biggest piece of being on your own team. When you doubt your own leadership, when you doubt your own ability to make decisions, it gets really hard to be on your own team. So these videos and this content on this Owning Authenticity platform, this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about all of the incremental nitty-gritty steps along the way because living it day by day is the practice. It's not a permanent transformation, a one and done. It's a lifestyle. It's something we chip away at every day because it is an investment in